The phone rang at 3:17 a.m. Major Frank Walters rolled over in bed, his hand reaching for the device before he was fully awake. Years of military training had made this response automatic. "Major Walters," he answered, his voice clear despite the early hour. "Sir, this is Lieutenant Garcia at the Jupiter Monitoring Station. We have a situation." Frank sat up straight, suddenly wide awake. "Go ahead, Lieutenant." "Sir, we've detected 5 objects entering the solar system near Jupiter's orbit. They're moving at speeds we can't explain, and they're slowing down. This isn't natural space debris or any known spacecraft." Frank's heart began to pound. The Extraterrestrial Monitoring Division had been created 3 years ago after strange signals were detected from deep space. Most people thought it was a waste of money. Frank knew better. "I'll be there in 20 minutes. Alert the President's office and initiate Protocol 7. Frank dressed quickly in his uniform, his mind racing. Protocol 7 was something they had practiced but never expected to use. It meant possible first contact with alien life. At the White House, President Ellen Powell looked at the faces around the emergency meeting table. Defense Secretary Martin, CIA Director Blake, and the Joint Chiefs all wore expressions of disbelief and concern. "You're telling me we have aliens in our solar system?" President Powell asked, her voice steady despite the extraordinary news. "Yes, Madam President," Frank replied. "The objects are now in a holding pattern near Jupiter. Their technology is far beyond ours. To travel those distances and maneuver like that." "What do they want?" asked Secretary Martin. "We don't know yet, but they're being careful, staying far away while they observe us. That suggests they're cautious, maybe even scared of us." The President nodded. "Dr. Olivia Reeves from NASA is flying in. She's the best xenobiologist we have. I want options by the time she lands." Dr. Olivia Reeves looked out the window of the military jet. As it approached Washington, D.C., her mind kept returning to the strange readings she'd been sent. Whatever was out there by Jupiter, it was artificial and controlled. After years of searching the stars for signs of life, first contact was happening during her lifetime. The jet landed with a bump, and as the door opened, Olivia saw 2 military officers waiting for her. "Dr. Reeves, I'm Captain Greg Foster. We need to get you to the White House right away." Around the world, military leaders received encrypted messages from their governments. In Beijing, General Wei ordered his forces to high alert without public announcement. In Moscow, the Russian president called his top scientists to an emergency meeting. In London, the Royal Navy quietly positioned its submarines in strategic locations, all without causing panic. No news reached the public. Life continued normally on Earth while its leaders prepared for the unimaginable. At the Pentagon Command Center, Frank stared at the large screen showing the solar system. 5 red dots blinked near Jupiter. "4 of them are holding position," said Lieutenant Garcia. "But this one has changed course." Frank leaned forward. "Where is it headed?" "Toward us, sir. It's on a direct path to Earth." President Powell joined Frank at the screen. "How long until it gets here?" "At its current speed." "About 3 days, Madam President." Dr. Reeves, who had just arrived, spoke up. "If they wanted to harm us, they could have sent asteroids or launched weapons from a distance. The fact that they're sending what looks like a smaller vessel suggests they want information. Or they're scouting us before an invasion," Frank added. The president looked at the blinking dot moving toward Earth. "We need to be ready for either possibility. Major Walters, Dr. Reeves, you two will lead our response team. If these are scouts, I want to know what they're looking for." "And if they're hostile?" Frank asked. The president's face hardened. "Then we show them that humanity isn't easily conquered." As Frank and Olivia left the room to begin preparations, neither noticed the tiny metallic speck that had attached itself to Olivia's bag during her flight. The first alien drone to reach Earth's surface, already gathering intelligence. High above Earth, the alien ship slipped into orbit. It was sleek and almost see-through, like glass catching sunlight. Earth's regular radar couldn't spot it, but the special equipment at Major Walter's command center tracked its movement. Inside the ship, Scout Commander Zex Toril stood before a wall of glowing screens. His skin was pale blue with faint patterns that shifted like clouds. 3 pairs of eyes blinked at different times as he studied the images of Earth. "Scan complete," Commander said, his second-in-command. "The planet has large oceans, breathable atmosphere, and abundant resources, ideal for our needs." Zex Toril nodded. "And the local species? They call themselves humans. They have basic space travel but haven't gone beyond their moon. Their weapons are primitive compared to ours." The commander made a clicking sound with his mouthparts. "The Araxian Collective will be pleased. This is the 13th world we have found suitable for conquest." Zex Toril had done this many times before. First, they would watch. Then, they would evaluate the planet's defenses. If the local species was weak enough, they would call in the invasion fleet. The Araxians needed new worlds for their growing population, and Earth looked perfect. "Release the surveillance drones," Zex Toril ordered. "I want complete information about their military capabilities." From the belly of the alien ship, hundreds of tiny machines no bigger than insects shot out in all directions. Each drone was programmed to find and observe military bases, weapon systems, and population centers. "Remember our mission," Zex Toril told his crew. "We must stay hidden. If the humans discover us too soon, they might unite against us. Divided, they will be easier to conquer." Dr. Olivia Reeves sat in her new office at the Pentagon, studying reports about the alien ship. Something small flashed in the corner of her eye. She turned quickly but saw nothing unusual. The tiny drone that had hitched a ride on her bag was now attached to the ceiling, recording everything. It sent images back to Zex Toril's ship, maps on the walls, military documents on the desk, humans in uniforms walking through hallways. Major Frank Walters stood in a room filled with screens and busy people. Each screen showed a different part of the world. One showed troops training in Russia. Another showed ships in the South China Sea. A third showed fighter jets taking off in Europe. "Any sign they've spotted us watching them?" Frank asked. "No, sir," said Lieutenant Garcia. "The alien ship is staying in the shadow of the moon." "Very clever position." Frank nodded. "And our satellites. All repositioned to monitor the ship. If it moves, we'll know." On his ship, Zex Toril was becoming confused. The drone reports were not making sense. "This can't be right," he said, looking at the numbers. "According to these readings, the humans have military forces in the hundreds of millions." His second-in-command checked the data. "The drones are working correctly, Commander. It appears the humans are heavily militarized for a pre-interstellar species." Zex Toril zoomed in on images from around the planet. Massive aircraft carriers in oceans, huge bases in deserts, underground bunkers in mountains, weapons factories, training grounds, airfields filled with jets. "Look at this," he said, pointing to a map showing military installations. "They're everywhere. And their weapons, while not as advanced as ours, are still quite dangerous." He pulled up more images, tanks rolling across plains, missile tests, soldiers marching in formation, submarines hiding under ice. "And the strangest thing," Zex Toril continued, "is how ready they seem, almost as if they've been preparing for an alien threat." "Should we call for the invasion fleet?" asked his second-in-command. Zex Toril's patterns shifted to a darker blue. "Not yet. I need more information. There's something unusual about these humans. They spend enormous resources on war, even though they're not currently fighting any major conflicts. Their military preparation exceeds anything we've seen on other worlds." He stared at the blue planet turning slowly below his ship. "Continue gathering data. I want to understand why a species that has never met aliens would build armies this large." What Zex Toril didn't know was that back on Earth, humans had already spotted one of his drones. Captain Amy Garrison walked across the grounds of Fort Bragg, clipboard in hand. As head of the base's intelligence unit, she was checking security after the strange alert from Washington. The message had been vague. Watch for unusual electronic signals. Suddenly, her phone, radio, and the lights on nearby buildings all flickered at once. Amy froze, looking up at the clear sky. That wasn't normal. "Did you see that, sir?" asked Private Scott, who was walking with her. "I did," Amy said, her eyes scanning the area. "Get the electromagnetic detection equipment from the lab. Now." Private Scott ran off while Amy walked slowly in a circle, studying the ground. Something had caused an electromagnetic pulse, small but noticeable. Then she saw it. A tiny metallic object no bigger than a bee, half hidden in the grass. Amy knelt down. The object was unlike anything she had ever seen. It had tiny lenses and what looked like wings, but it wasn't moving. She carefully picked it up with a handkerchief just as Private Scott returned with a metal case. "What is it, Captain?" he asked. "I'm not sure," Amy replied. "But I think we just found what Washington warned us about." Dr. Olivia Reeves looked through a powerful microscope at the tiny device Captain Garrison had found. Around her, a team of scientists and engineers watched eagerly. "This is definitely not from Earth," Olivia said. "The materials, the design, it's alien technology." Major Frank Walters stood nearby, arms crossed. "Is it dangerous?" "It seems to have partially self-destructed when it malfunctioned," Olivia explained. "But there's enough left for us to learn from it. Look at this power source. It's tiny but incredibly efficient." One of the engineers pointed to a small part on the device. "This appears to be a transmitter. It was sending information somewhere." Frank frowned. "So it's a spy drone. The aliens are watching us." "Yes," Olivia nodded. "And there are probably more of these all over the world." 3 days later, Amy Garrison stood in front of a room full of military officers from different countries. On the screen behind her was an image of the alien drone. "Using what we learned from the damaged drone," Amy explained, "we built this detector." She held up a small box with a digital display. It confined the unique energy signature these drones give off. She clicked to the next slide, showing a map with dozens of red dots. "We've detected drone activity in these locations around the world. Notice anything about them?" General Johnson from the Air Force spoke up. "They're all military installations." "Exactly," Amy said. "Nuclear missile silos, aircraft carriers, army bases, weapons testing sites. The aliens are specifically studying our military capabilities." On his ship, Zex Toril was growing increasingly worried. His drone network was sending back disturbing information. "This makes no sense," he said to his crew. "According to our intelligence, Earth should have fragmented military forces with maybe a few million soldiers total. But we're seeing hundreds of millions of potential fighters." His second-in-command pulled up more images. "And look at their weapon systems. They're more advanced than we expected. They have nuclear capabilities, stealth technology, and space-based weapons platforms." Zex Toril zoomed in on a map showing military bases across Earth. "But most concerning is this level of integration. See how their forces are positioned. It almost seems like they've been preparing for an extraterrestrial threat." "Could they have detected us already?" asked one of his crew. "Impossible," Zex Toril replied. "Our ship is invisible to their primitive sensors." But even as he said it, he wasn't completely sure. Back on Earth, Frank Walters and Olivia Reeves looked at the latest satellite images of the alien ship. "It's changing position," Frank noted, "moving to the dark side of the moon." "They're hiding," Olivia said, "which means they don't want us to see them." Frank nodded. "Captain Garrison's drone detectors have been distributed to military bases worldwide. We're finding more alien devices every hour." "And what happens when the aliens realize we've discovered their spy network?" Olivia asked. Frank's face was grim. "Then we'll find out if they're just curious, or if they're planning an invasion." The military parade in Beijing was massive. Soldiers marched in perfect lines while tanks and missile launchers rolled through the streets. China was showing off its newest weapons, including hypersonic missiles that could fly 5 times faster than sound. High above the parade, one of Zextoral's drones hovered, recording everything. It was sending valuable information back to the alien ship: troop numbers, weapon capabilities, and military technology. What the drone didn't know was that it had flown into a trap. In a control room nearby, Chinese General Wu looked at a screen showing the alien drone as a small blip. "The American detection system works," he said to his team. "We have a confirmed alien surveillance device." He picked up a secure phone and gave an order. Seconds later, a soldier in the parade raised what looked like a camera, but was actually an electromagnetic pulse gun. He aimed it at the sky and fired. The alien drone froze midair, then fell like a stone, landing on top of a military truck. The news spread quickly through secure channels. The Chinese had captured an intact alien drone. Within hours, accusations flew between countries. "China believes we planted the device," Major Frank Walters told President Powell. "They think it's American spy technology." "Can you blame them?" the president replied. "We need to tell them the truth before this becomes an international incident." Frank nodded. "I'm flying to Beijing tonight, but we need to be careful. The aliens might be watching how we respond." Zextoral stared at the emergency alert on his screen. One of his best drones had gone silent during a human military display. "Show me the last transmission," he ordered. The screen filled with images of the Chinese parade. Endless rows of soldiers, powerful weapons, and vast crowds watching with pride. "Freeze there," Zextoral said. "Look at the civilians." His crew leaned closer. "They're cheering their military," Zextoral said. "On most planets we've conquered, civilians fear or barely tolerate their armed forces. But here, the humans glorify their warriors," his second-in-command finished. Zextoral's skin patterns darkened with worry. "A species that celebrates war is dangerous. And now they've captured one of our drones. We need to retrieve the remaining surveillance units before they're all compromised." In Beijing, Frank Walters sat across from General Wu. Between them on the table was the alien drone, now sealed in a clear container. "So you've been tracking these devices too," General Wu said after Frank explained everything. "Yes, we found our first one at Fort Bragg," Frank replied. "These aren't human technology. They're alien." General Wu studied Frank's face, then nodded slowly. "I believe you. Our scientists already determined this device uses materials not found on Earth." Frank leaned forward. "General, this goes beyond any rivalries between our countries. There's an alien ship hiding behind our moon, studying Earth's defenses." "For what purpose?" asked General Wu. "We don't know yet, but history teaches us that when someone studies your weaknesses, they rarely have friendly intentions." General Wu stood up and walked to a window overlooking the city. "Then we must show them we have no weaknesses." As Zextoral's ship emerged from behind the moon to begin retrieving the remaining drones, an alert sounded. "Commander, human satellites are tracking us." Zextoral spun around. "Impossible. Our cloaking technology is not working against their newest satellites," his officer interrupted. "They've adjusted their sensors. They can see us." For the first time in his career as a scout, Zextoral felt real fear. This species was learning too quickly, adapting to alien technology they'd never seen before. And worse, instead of panicking, they were coordinating their response. On screens around him, Zextoral watched as military communications suddenly increased all over the planet. The humans knew they were being watched, and they were getting ready to show their true strength. The United Nations building in New York had never seen a meeting like this. Military leaders from around the world sat together in a room that was normally reserved for diplomats. Armed guards stood at every door. No phones or recording devices were allowed. General Keith Daniels of the United States stood at the front of the room. Behind him, a large screen showed the alien ship, now clearly visible to Earth's satellites. "Ladies and gentlemen," General Daniels began. What we feared is now confirmed. We are not alone in the universe, and we are being watched. The room was silent. Generals and admirals from countries that were often enemies now sat side by side, united by a common threat. General Lin Wei of China stood up. My country has analyzed the drone we captured. Its purpose was clear: to study our military capabilities. The Russian commander, General Petrov, nodded. We have found 3 such devices near our missile bases. This is not a scientific mission. These aliens are assessing our strength. General Daniels looked around the room. Then we must show them our true strength. I propose a temporary unified command structure, all our forces working together to send a clear message. 5 years ago, such a suggestion would have been impossible. Nations guarded their military secrets jealously. But now, faced with a potential threat from beyond Earth, old rivalries seem small. One by one, the military leaders agreed. In a smaller room nearby, Dr. Olivia Reeves argued with Major Frank Walters. This is a mistake, Olivia said. We should be trying to communicate with them, not threatening them. Frank shook his head. We don't know their intentions, but their actions, sending spy drones to military sites, suggest they're not here for friendly conversation. But a show of force might provoke them, or it might make them think twice about attacking. Frank countered. History shows that weakness invites aggression. We need to demonstrate that Earth is not an easy target. Olivia sighed. I hope you're right, because if you're wrong, we might start the first interstellar war. Around the world, soldiers received new orders. Aircraft carriers changed course. Submarines surfaced in formation. Fighter jets took off in coordinated flights. Missile defense systems activated. Tank divisions moved into visible positions. It was the largest, most coordinated military exercise in human history, and it was all for an audience of one. The alien scout watching from orbit. On his ship, Zex Toral's 3 pairs of eyes widened as he watched the humans' response. They're mobilizing everything, his second-in-command said in disbelief. Look at these numbers. The screen showed military forces moving all across Earth, not in chaos, but in perfect order. Not fighting each other, but working together. Millions of soldiers, thousands of aircraft, hundreds of ships, all moving as if controlled by a single mind. This is unprecedented, Zex Toral said. The report said humans were divided into nearly 200 separate territories called nations. They were supposed to be divided, mistrustful of each other. Something has united them, his officer replied. Us. Zex Toral's skin patterns turned an anxious purple. The Araxian collective has conquered 12 worlds, but none had military forces like this. Even if we brought our entire fleet, subduing this many fighters would take years. Should we retreat, Commander? Zex Toral stared at the images of Earth's military might. His mission was to determine if Earth was a suitable target for invasion. The answer was becoming clear. Not yet. I need absolute certainty. If the humans are truly this organized and powerful, the collective needs to know. Keep watching. But even as he spoke, a new alert sounded. Multiple objects had launched from Earth, missiles heading toward space, directly toward the points where his ship had been hiding earlier. The humans weren't just showing their strength. They were sending a message. We know you're there, and we're ready. Zex Toral stood alone in his command center, watching Earth through the ship's powerful scanners. The blue planet below was alive with activity. Military vessels crossed oceans. Aircraft filled the skies. Ground forces moved into formation across continents. Commander, his second-in-command called from a monitoring station. You need to see this. Zex Toral moved to the screen, which showed a global map of human military positions. Red dots covered the image, so many they almost merged together in places. Our latest count puts their active military personnel at over 70 million. The officer reported. And that's not counting reserves, which could triple that number. Zex Toral's skin patterns shifted to a deep blue of concern. How is this possible? Our initial scans suggested much smaller forces. The humans are highly territorial and have spent most of their history fighting each other, another officer explained. They've built massive war machines even though they've only recently developed basic space travel. Zex Toral brought up another screen showing human weapons, nuclear missiles, stealth bombers, aircraft carriers, tanks, drones, satellites. The list went on and on. The Araxian collective expected to find a divided planet with primitive defenses, Zex Toral said quietly. Instead, we found a species that puts enormous resources into military power. He zoomed in on various regions. In one area, countless ships moved together in perfect formation. In another, thousands of tanks rolled across a desert. Elsewhere, missile launchers emerged from hidden underground silos. The most worrying thing, Zex Toral continued, is how quickly they've united against us. These humans have overcome their differences to present a unified defense. A warning alarm sounded. One of his officers called out, "Commander, the humans are launching more missiles." On the main screen, dozens of small objects were rising from Earth. They weren't aimed directly at the alien ship, but rather at empty points in space near the ship's position. They're not attacking, Zex Toral realized. They're showing us that they know exactly where we are, and that they can hit us if they choose to. For several long moments, Zex Toral was silent, thinking. Finally, he turned to his crew. "I've made my decision. Our mission was to assess whether this planet would be suitable for conquest. Based on what we've seen, the answer is clear." Major Frank Walters stood in the Pentagon Command Center, watching the missile launch on a large screen. Beside him, President Powell waited tensely. "Will they understand our message?" she asked. "I believe so," Frank replied. "We're showing them we know they're there, but we're not attacking. We're demonstrating strength while leaving room for peaceful contact." Dr. Olivia Reeves joined them, her face worried. "And if they take it as a threat? Then we'll know their intentions weren't friendly to begin with," Frank said. The room fell silent as everyone watched the screen. The missiles reached their programmed positions and detonated, creating bright flashes in space, visible warnings that framed the area where they knew the alien ship was hiding. "Now we wait," the president said. They didn't have to wait long. "Movement," called out Lieutenant Garcia from his station. "The alien ship is changing position." All eyes turned to the screen as the alien vessel suddenly emerged from its hiding place. For a moment, it seemed to hover, clearly visible to Earth's sensors. "Are they preparing to attack?" someone asked nervously. Frank watched intently. "No, I think they're..." Before he could finish, the alien ship accelerated rapidly, moving away from Earth toward the outer solar system. "They're leaving," Olivia said in disbelief. Frank nodded slowly. "They came to scout us, to see if we would be easy to conquer." President Powell finished his thought. "And they just decided we wouldn't be." The room erupted in cheers as the alien ship's signature faded from their screens. Earth had faced its first extraterrestrial challenge and had won without firing a shot. But Frank Walters wasn't cheering. He knew that scouts always reported back to someone. This wasn't the end. It was just the beginning. 6 months had passed since the alien ship left Earth's orbit. The world had changed in ways no one could have imagined before. Major Frank Walters stood at the window of his new office in the United Nations building in New York. Below him, construction crews worked on the new Extraterrestrial Defense Council headquarters. What had started as a temporary alliance had become permanent. Dr. Olivia Reeves entered the room, carrying a tablet. "The satellite network is fully operational," she reported. "We can now detect any ship entering our solar system, even with their cloaking technology." Frank nodded. "And the new weapons systems. Based on what we learned from the alien drones, we've made good progress. The Chinese and American teams are working well together." It still seemed strange to Frank that former rivals were now close partners. Nothing united people like a common threat. "Any word from Captain Garrison's team?" he asked. They finished training the first International Space Defense Force, 5,000 soldiers ready to defend Earth if needed. Frank turned from the window. Let's hope they never have to. Across the world, humanity remained on alert. Military forces stayed at high readiness. New satellites watched the stars. Scientists studied the alien technology from the captured drones. Children practiced alien invasion drills alongside fire and earthquake drills in schools. The fear of the unknown had changed daily life, but it had also brought people together. Old conflicts seemed small compared to the possibility of an interstellar threat. On the edge of the solar system, Zex Toral's ship approached the rendezvous point where the rest of the Araxian fleet waited. His vessel looked tiny next to the massive warships of the collective. The supreme commander of the fleet, Cranvex, greeted Zex Toral with impatience. "Your report is overdue, Scout Commander. Is the planet suitable for conquest?" Zex Toral's skin patterns showed deep concern. "Supreme Commander, I must report that Earth is not a viable target." "Explain." Cranvex's tone was cold. "The humans have military forces far beyond our expectations. Hundreds of millions of potential fighters, advanced weapons, and most importantly, they're united against external threats." He showed the Supreme Commander the recordings. Earth's massive armies, navies, and air forces all moving in perfect coordination. "This species has devoted enormous resources to war," Zex Toral explained. "They've spent most of their history fighting each other, which has made them exceptionally good at combat. Attempting to conquer them would require more forces than the collective can spare." Cranvex studied the images for a long time. Finally, he nodded. "Your assessment is accepted. We will mark this system as unsuitable for conquest." Back on Earth, a UN security guard approached Frank and Olivia. "Sir, ma'am, you need to come quickly. Something was just delivered to the front desk." In the lobby, security personnel surrounded a small package. Bomb-sniffing dogs and electronic scanners had cleared it, but everyone remained cautious. "It just appeared," the security chief explained. "No delivery person, no warning." Frank carefully opened the package. Inside was a small device unlike anything he had seen before. It glowed softly and projected words into the air in 12 different human languages. The message was simple: "We acknowledge your strength. We will return not as conquerors, but as traitors. Prepare your diplomats." Olivia looked at Frank. "What does this mean?" "It means we passed the test," Frank said. "They wanted to know if we were worth conquering or worth respecting." President Powell, who had arrived moments earlier, read the floating message. "So what happens now?" Frank picked up the alien device carefully. "Now we prepare. Our show of strength bought us time and respect, but the universe just got a lot more complicated." In a ceremony the next day, Captain Amy Garrison was promoted to major and appointed to lead Earth's new diplomatic team. As she accepted her new position, she looked at the stars visible through the ceiling windows. Somewhere out there, the Araxians were telling others about the small blue planet with the surprisingly large army, a planet not to be conquered, but perhaps someday to be befriended. Earth had earned its place among the stars not through peaceful exploration, but through the one thing humans had always excelled at: preparing for war.